Okay, we're live. All right. Well, welcome everybody back to Deep Dives in the Desert. And I'm super honored to have Anthony Campos back. We did speak a few weeks back and had an amazing conversation. And then we also have the lovely Miss Daija. Welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Such a
Yeah.
pleasure to be here speaking with you guys this morning.
It's our first
Yeah.
time, by the way.
Oh, yes. Oh, well, I'm super excited to talk to you. I've been wanting to talk to you for a few weeks now. So I've been really looking forward to it. So just to kind of get started, can you tell us a little bit about you and how you got into your spiritual journey as well? And just introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So my spiritual awakening happened a couple years ago. So I'm still pretty new to everything, still adjusting, having little breakthroughs. But of course, it started with, that dark night of the soul, really working on myself, going through a breakup with a narcissist, clearing out some karma there, finding out who I was because, as you can see, I'm still pretty young here. So just really clearing out, all my family trauma, getting to the bottom of everything. And I'm still doing that to this day. And I'm so grateful. And I met Anthony on my journey, and we've just been enjoying this together.
That's incredible. And just like our last conversation, Anthony, when we were talking about this, it's so much easier when you have somebody to go through it with, but that's not the common thing, right?
Yeah, it's a rarity. I feel like most people are under this impression that you have to have somebody first come in to kind of activate you or walk you along the journey, and they fall into this limerence or this obsession. They fall into this misinformation that the new age spiritual community is putting out about unions and relationships, and they're not cognizant that they're still mirroring their past traumas and their karma, their karmic relationships of trying to search externally outside themselves for fulfillment. And it keeps putting them into this repetitive pattern of law of correspondence, of just this mirroring effect, as above so below, as within so without. So they keep attracting the same partner, different body. And because they're spiritually inclined, or they know how to mask themselves with the language of spirituality, they think that these people are embodied souls, when in reality, it's just another person that's here to teach them a very harsh lesson. So I started first to understand the importance of merging my energies into one, my masculine, my feminine energies. I completely surrendered. I accepted that if I was going to be alone for a year, if I was going to be alone for 2 years, I accepted my fate, essentially, instead of resisting the changes. Because every time I resisted, every time that I try to go to old coping pattern, old coping mechanism, it's almost like there was divine intervention, and there was a line that was drawn that wouldn't allow me to step in to this intrusive place or this darkness that I once was, in a state of despair, depression. So once you hit that all-time low on the spiritual journey, you'll go through moments of darkness, but it's not a continuous cycle no longer, because you're now intact and in tune with your higher self. So it's like your higher self will intervene anytime your lower self or the ego self wants to collude or go back to old way of living. It's like your higher self just steps in to stop it right at that moment and keep you into a steady ascension.
Yeah, a couple of things that bring up it, because it's where what we do now is, whatever stage you're in now, you have to realize it's just a point in your life. It's not your whole life. So as the ego brain, right, or the primitive brain that we have, that we start thinking of, that ego brain, what it does is it puts you right into, like, this is my life. You're maybe on a ebb, not a flow, and that you think that's where your journey is. Your journey is you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You can't, why is this happening? You start to get into this whole thing, and you get into that fight or flight, right? That's how our brain works. So what starts to happen is you think that's your life, but it really isn't. That's just a moment in time that you can learn the most if you can stay in the right frequency or mind frame, knowing that that is just an ebb, and when the flow comes, that flow can be so much more or so much longer of a period of time, if you know that the universe will line up, your higher guidance will step in, as long as you have the right thoughts, right words, thoughts, and
Yeah, I definitely
actions.
hear it, yeah.
Yeah, and you can move forward. You'll be able to move forward much quicker. But that being said, a big component of it, I don't know if you guys could maybe speak to this, because this is something that she was talking to me about a lot, was kind of keeping your body, also in the right state, right? Whether it's getting exercise, going for a walk, grounding, getting out into nature, working out, eating the right way, which, we all always can do better and better with. But do you guys do anything like to kind of keep yourself grounded, or stay away from maybe sugar, or what? I don't know. What do you guys do?
Absolutely. I mean, when it comes to taking care of our bodies, we do eat as healthy as we possibly can. I go through periods of time where I just completely cut out any sugar, lower carbs. We still eat meat, but we try to clean everything up, make sure everything's portioned well. Another thing that we do to take care of our bodies is to ground ourselves. So we're always out in nature, whether it's the lake, just out in the mountains, especially when we lived in New Mexico. We just loved getting out in nature and being able to connect, not just to nature, but I feel like it brought us closer together as well.
Yeah, Deja's also a bodybuilder. She does fitness competitions. I'm always active. I've been active. I was an athlete all through high school, my adolescence. It was basically my safe haven. It was my escape, because I came from a broken home. So I didn't really like to be at home. So baseball, I was there till the sun went down, and it just kept me away from this toxicity that I had within my own family. And that just kind of carried over. I was always searching for outlets and searching for ways to escape, the sickness I was surrounded within my own family. So I gravitated toward nature naturally. So I absolutely need to be by water. I have to be by water. Another thing that I find is one of the most helpful modalities for myself was writing. I like to write poetry, music. It, it's like, for myself, music is like a second lifeline. It's so important to me. I listen to a lot of melancholy, or very depressive music, and a lot of people think it's like, oh, well, that's low vibration. But really, it's like, if I'm listening to a song that I could relate to, and it's not like commercialized, or it's not monetized, it's not mainstream, then these are usually the songs that I can relate to. So it allows me to pull this creative energy and be more co-creative, procreative with how I want to, and externalize my pain, and my anger, and things that are perceived as a negative with a lot of new age spirituality. It's like they're teaching people to diminish their anger, or they're teaching people to bypass certain constructs within our own mind that are absolutely a necessity to help you progress, um, and more further align yourself with exactly where you're trying to go as far as your spirituality, your personal evolution, whether it's your physical life, your spiritual life. I like to think of myself as having like my personal life, my relationships, and then my spiritual life. So it's really about converging, merging all of them together, and finding that balance. Because a lot of people, they stay too high or they stay too low, and there has to be a healthy median. And that's what nature always does for me. It always brings me back to this place where I can escape, the loudness. People very early on the journey, they struggle to be around crowded areas because of the stigmas with empaths. And like I always tell people, like, this is a stigma. This is not really who you are. This is just a stigma where people are creating so many videos like, you can't be in crowds, you can't go around these large areas of people because you're absorbing their energy, you're absorbing their emotions. And people don't realize, well, it's just because I'm sensitive to the energy, but I also have control over what energy I allow into my magnetic field through my thoughts. So over time, you start challenging yourself, and one of the most important parts was confidence. You have to have the confidence in yourself to know that, all energy must come through you first, and then from there you could choose. You can choose to do it what you will with it.
That's what happened to me when I first started awakening. I think we talked about it before, but I for probably about 4 months, I had the hardest time being in public. We would literally go to sit down, and I would like, we have to leave. I can't stay in this. It was so uncomfortable. And I just felt like I was picking up on everything, and I would just go ground all the time. Thankfully, we had a park literally across the street. So I would just walk over there and like sit on the roots of a tree, put my feet in the grass constantly. And then over time, like you said, you learn that, okay, this doesn't have to affect me the way that I'm allowing it to affect me. It's like I'm too open, I'm letting too much stuff in. And you start kind of standing in your sovereignty and you realize, like, okay, I'm good, but it's a process because all of these things are new to you, energy is new to you, and they're things you didn't even pay attention to before. I remember feeling like leaning up against a tree or feeling a tree and feeling that energy coming off the tree. And I was just like, holy shit. Like I literally have been around a million trees in my life and I never felt it and I never recognized it. But you could feel as soon as you get into their field, almost where I was reaching out to it, in my mind and just saying, I'm coming towards you and kind of introducing myself in some way with my energy. And then, feeling that energy. It sounds so like hippie and silly, but for my age group, anyway, I'm 54. That was nothing that anybody in the 80s or even 70s would be talking about on that way. Except, our
Yeah.
our families maybe had some friends in the 60s that they talk about that was like that.
Tree
But
hugging, yeah.
yeah, but we never thought of it that way. But it changes where you just start feeling the energy of everything, and then
Yeah,
pulling
yeah.
crystals, pulling all of these things, and you're just like, wow, okay, there's energy and everything. So it's interesting to kind of go through that. Deja, did you find that as you started going through your awakening, you were sensitive to all of these new energies?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. If anything, I feel like I was hypersensitive. And at first, I didn't understand it. So it kind of just shocked me, especially when we were out in public places, because it happened more so when we were first together, like when we were on our first dates. Like it was really hard to be out in public and get all these stares and like just feel all of this commotion of energy in the room. And at the time, I didn't know how to transmute that or just completely ignore it. So I would be like, hey, like, what's going on? Like, my nervous system is everywhere. It's being shocked. And he's like, you know what? Just block it out, or we can go do something else, something that's going to, nurture us in a different way. But you could definitely tell the energy in the room as soon as you walked in. Um, but yeah, I
Yeah.
do feel like hypersensitive would be a good word to explain that.
Yeah.
It's basically like you go to a coffee shop and there's nobody in line behind you, and you when you're in a healthy union or you're vibing high, it's going to magnetize everybody. Lines are going to get fuller. People are going to stare at you because there's an aura that they're not consciously aware that you carry, because it's not visually appeasing to the eye to most people. So they're kind of trying to figure out, like, what is it about these people, or what is it about this couple that I'm so like attracted to, or it's just pulling me in, not realizing that it's a subtle quietness. It's a peace within yourself that's emitting and radiating to the external world, and it just naturally pull people in. So, the whole process of healing, each level that you consciously elevate, you become more sensitive. Your taste buds change, your smell changes, your vision changes. You start operating beyond the five senses, and you start to realize that you have all these different senses into the spiritual realm. And it's like, well, now that I have these newfound abilities, and a lot of people, they misconstrue like psychic abilities, and they think it means that I can tell you what's going to happen tomorrow, or I can tell you, who's going to be president, when in reality that's kind of like people more in a delusional state, trying to, they're trying to capitalize off of these abilities that you do gain, but they're real subtle. Over time, I do personally believe they're going to get to the point where it does become like telepathy, and on a more profound level. Right now, it's just subtle. Like you have subtle shifts with your clairvoyance, your clairsalience, claircognizance, your clairaudience. So all your clair abilities essentially start to heighten, and it's then up to you to find out, like, why is my ear ringing? Why is my left ear ringing? What's my right ear mean? Why are both ringing? What's this number mean? A lot of people, they're so quick to go to Google and search an angel number, but you're just going to get the same thing, the same meanings. It's really about realizing that these angel numbers are manifesting through my higher self, and they're essentially like coordinates and components to your spirituality, to further get you to start trusting your intuition, um, and really, really embodying your divinity. So You know, it's a beautiful journey. Like you never stop seeing the numbers. But a lot of people don't realize you don't have to be awakened to see angel numbers or angles of lights. And that's where people, it's like I hate to be the person that tells somebody like you're I really are. It's like a slippery slope telling somebody that they're not awakened and they're on the precipice, because a lot of people think that, oh, well, I opened my third eye, or you know, I closed it now, and it's like, no. Once your third eye is open, it remains open. There's no closing it back. There's no closing it. There's no going backward. Once your third eye is open, it remains open. Once your chakras are open, they remain open.
Yeah, well, a few things. I think that you know, you do have to embody what you have. So before we were ever into, when we first met, when she said, right, she was like, you have this like glow about you. Remember? So she was telling me that, and I was going, uh, oh, yeah, oh, thanks, right? Because I didn't know how. I was like, okay, I had no idea. This was like 17 years ago, right? 18 years ago. And so I remember her telling me that and stuff. And you know, I heard it before, but I was always unaware. I'm very unaware, right? Like what she's like, how does this feel now when you do this? How does that feel when you do that? And I'm like, I don't know, I really didn't feel anything. But it's just because I was very unaware of like the sensations going on in my body or what was going on in my head, right? And so as much as that can be a negative in certain areas where the positive was, because I think everything it's a double-edged sword. So one was, I wish if I was more aware, maybe my awakening could have came a little quicker. Like hers came very quick because she's very aware of what's happening in her body. But with me, it wasn't. But I didn't go through none of like what you guys are saying, how you were uncomfortable around, because first of all, if I was feeling like that, I wasn't aware of it. So I was walking through it, you know, going like, yeah, this is cool. I feel that the trees doing this now, but I didn't, when I was around a bunch of people, I didn't really feel anything like that. I didn't get that. I wasn't hypersensitive to that. So, you know, when you look at it, you want to make sure like wherever you are, that's where you're supposed to be. Because maybe if I was hypersensitive, maybe I would have reacted in a way where, you know, I would, maybe, who knows, you could someone maybe flip out if you're not, you know what I mean? So I think wherever you are in your journey, wherever you are starting, that's where you're supposed to be. And it's not a negative, it's not a positive, it's actually both, right? Because you're going to move through things easier because of it, and then you may have some challenges because of it, but you got to put the work in, I think, all the time. And when you do open like your third eye, or when your chakras are aligned and you start to, you know, feel through them, that's great. But every day you want to put the work in to make sure that, right, that they're staying in alignment, you're getting stronger, and you're able to help more people. Because you know, I think with that would become more wisdom, right? You start to improve in all your clears or intuition, and that all starts to work. And then that's how you can start to plant seeds, I think, in other people's fields. So with that, what type of work do you guys do like on a daily basis? So besides the grounding and that stuff, what do you do as far as when you're meditating, or even when you're speaking to people? What's the messaging you're getting from your guidance and giving to people?
You want me to go first? So for myself, like, you know, when you start to really get to this place where you're balanced and you're aligned, the universe is going to give you that nudge to start speaking, to open your throat chakra. It's going to delay that on the onset, because there's still things that you may be working through. There's always going to be things that you're working through, but you get to a point where you're at peace, where you have inner peace, and you know the direction where you're going. Where you're going, it's essentially you discovered your calling. Your calling found you, and this is when you start to use your own personalized gifts, your talents, things that make you uniquely yourself, things that are going to help you further elevate the state of the consciousness of humanity. So perhaps you're good with children, or you're good with speaking, you're good at writing, you're good with touch, or you have just a certain way of connecting to individuals. You're very therapeutic with how you speak. So it's just about taking things that you're already good at and refining them to send you out into the collective. So one thing I've discovered on my journey is you're going to walk away from more people than you can help. A lot of people are siphoning energies. A lot of people truly don't want the help. A lot of people are drawn because spirituality right now, it's basically like a trend. It's a fad right now. So a lot of people are aware of spirituality, but they're truly not living it. They're not really embodying what spirituality means. And there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of misconstrued information. So for myself, I always remind people, like, if you work with me or if I'm mentoring you, the first thing I'm going to tell you is I'm not going to do anything for you that you can't do for yourself. My whole notion is I want to point you back to yourself, to lead you to yourself. If I'm telling you things like, well, you just set up this appointment, I can align your chakras for you, I can get rid of these entities for you, you need to do this, this candle ritual, you need to go put crystals onto your pillow. If I'm telling you all this stuff, I'm basically making you exist in a state of fear and making you look outside yourself. So therefore, you're never going to fully discover what it is to be in tune with yourself, because I'm making you search externally outside yourself. And that's the effect that a lot of people have, that have the appearance that they have it figured out, when in reality, they're still searching themselves, and they're still in a scarcity mindset. They're still in survival and fear mentality themselves. But for me, my whole thing is just letting people know that I'm going to be very blunt with you. I'm going to be honest. The things that I'm going to tell you are going to be very triggering. They're going to hurt you at some point, but it's not my intention to hurt you. But it's this pain that you have to come to the surface to be acknowledged. So when you come across somebody that has done the work, they can come off as sometimes very, very pompous or arrogant, sometimes cocky, because there's a knowing to them, there's a truth to them that's very triggered. So the things that people may lack, it becomes a mirror into their insecurities. So they begin to project and not really see that you're honestly doing them a solid by bringing all this residual energy and all this stagnation out of them, so they then can begin working on these issues that they have.
Daija, you want to ask Daija to answer?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, Daija, I would like to hear
that's
your. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just kind of wanted to see your take on that as well.
Yeah, of course. So for me personally, I've kind of found my niche to help women, especially when it comes to healing their femininity. So, another thing besides the grounding that I also do myself, not just preach, is doing your shadow work, working through the things that you don't want to see in yourself, or the things that are reflecting in other people, and besides that, also using different modalities. So, of course, grounding is great, but I love to do yoga. I love to do breath work, different things that get my body moving, blood flowing, things that I like to do for my mindset would be meditation. Something that I'm working on, doing every single day. Of course, you don't have to be, just laying on the ground or under a tree to meditate, but times throughout the day where I feel like where I'm flustered, or if I have a moment, um, just really not doing that to, tell others what to do, but also to live by what I'm preaching.
Right.
It's having a very harsh heart to heart with yourself,
Right.
and really pinpointing your vices. Are you struggling with addiction? Are you struggling with pornography, masturbation? Are you looking for instant gratification? Are you having these hookup culture type of relations? So it's really it's taking everything that we're programmed and conditioned to think is acceptable, and really learning to say no to it, learning to operate from a place where you see energy as sacred, you see your body as sacred, you see yourself as sacred, you see the kingdom as existing within you, you see God existing within you. So when people say that, I am who I am that I am, or God exists within me, God is not outside of me, it's really triggering to people, because they don't really understand where it's coming from, because they lack the self-awareness. When in reality, if I see God existing in myself, then I'm going to eat better. I'm going to treat people better. I'm going to love myself. I'm going to love my neighbors, because if I'm an extension of God, therefore I have to conduct myself as if God exists inside of me instead of outside of me. When you start searching externally, this is where people kind of, it's kind of like they operate without a compass. But when you're operating from within, it's that compass that's within that allows you to have the ethical and moral compass that's instilled through your intuition, and not searching outside yourself.
No, definitely. And I wanted to point out, Daija, that I love how you started a channel recently, right?
Yeah, show them.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
I
saw
did.
that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so exciting. But I loved how you said that you wanted to provide a platform for women to feel empowered and, be able to speak about these things, because especially with women now, we're so in our like masculine energy with this whole feminist thing, and it's really hard, not yet. It's really hard to kind of navigate everything and like stay in our divine feminine. And I don't know if you've experienced this with like friends or old relationships, but like me personally, like I come from a very traditional family. I believe in gender roles. That doesn't make like one less than the other. And then they're so like there's this narrative where they're pushing, they're like, well, that makes you less than your man. Like, why are you serving your man and all of that? And I feel like, well, it's not anything like that. It's just kind of like they're supposed to lead in the 3D and the physical, and we're supposed to lead them spiritually. That doesn't make you
Right.
like less than with that. So I really like that you do that. And I think it's so key to try to share that with other people, that it's important to embrace and embody that divine feminine with that. So I just wanted to point that out as well, that I love that you're doing that. We need more women like that so we can kind of band together for that, because when you tell people that you want to do this, people kind of look at you with the side of like, what are you talking about? Like, why are you doing that?
Yeah, and it's all about balance. It's not one gender is better than the other.
Mm-hmm.
Believe in gender roles, but I've definitely outgrown a lot of ideas that were considered old, and I really have a point in making sure that you and your person feel whole before you even go into that relationship, because if you're it's basically a transaction. If one person is only looking for that other person to fulfill them, well, it's now I need you, you need me, instead of I love myself, you love myself, let's have a beautiful life. Now it's transactional. So if we can both come into this life where, I'm doing my work, I'm doing everything that I can, and you can, well, now we have equal balance. And you can, fully embody your femininity without having those, imbalances, and, making the situation with your partner imbalanced as well, because that doesn't just affect you, that affects everyone around you.
Yeah.
Let's share them really quick.
Yeah. Go. She's going to share your channel.
Awesome, thank you guys so much.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. And I think, what you said too, like to get moving and get your body moving is great. And so this is your the Celestial Sisterhood.
Yes.
I like the name. That's a cool name.
Thank you. It's so funny because he had just changed his Instagram name to Celestial Echo, and I had actually written this name for my Instagram in my journal. I really wanted to put it out into the universe before I went official and updated all of my profiles and everything like that. And it was whenever I had DM'd him, like we send memes throughout the day and stuff like that. I was like, wait, we have matching names.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those synchronicities, and it just we have plenty of those. We have those all the time where it's like it's almost become second nature at this point, and there's never a dull moment with them. With as far as like speaking on gender roles, I feel like when you're in a healthy relationship, not just with your spouse or your boyfriends, your girlfriends, gender roles are naturally going to play out without feeling like you need to force it. It's something that when you have a baby, they know to be nurturing toward these dolls that you give them when they're children. It's instilled in them. As men, like it's instilled in you when you're in your masculine energy. You're going to lead by action. You're going to lead by the protective nature, to protect the women, the children, and things that need protection. So these are just things that are instilled in you. It's not something that was written and there's this manual or this script that's telling you, well, if you're in your masculine energy, this is what you need to do. It's like, no, this is ingrained in me. This is part of who I am without needing to be told, because this is what alignment is.
Yeah, little fur baby.
Yeah,
so
She made her appearance. Yeah.
Yeah, this is
This is
Leia.
Yeah.
It's funny. I got her right when I went through my awakening in 2021. She was the last thing I got from my mom before my mom had overdosed.
Mm,
So she had there's a lot of sentiment with her. She was terrified when I was going through my awakening because she can feel, you know, the energies around
mhm.
me, and she can feel, you know, all the chaos that was around me, and she was just staring into nowhere. She'd stare into the ceiling, she'd stare at the corners, she'd stare at the walls. So she went through a lot with me as well. And you know, we were navigating through that awakening together. I definitely don't feel like I'm here to teach my dog things. She's taught me more than I possibly can teach her. She came into my life at a moment where I had nobody left. I had just lost everything. I lost my job. I lost relationships. I lost everything, and it was just her and I, you know, navigating through this very uncharted territory without any knowledge of a spiritual awakening or a kundalini energy or you know, past life regression. I was going through a past life regression organically. I was going through a lot of OBE experiences with you know, with my spirit leaving my body as I was sleeping and things like that.
Yeah, one thing I'll tell you, hearing your story, Anthony, God bless you for the way you've come out of it and looking to help humanity and being positive on humanity, and you two guys kind of getting together and moving forward. It's an incredible story. It's powerful, and I think it can help a lot of people. And you know, because you know, there's a lot of people that went through some hard times, and you can see how they'll continue to stumble and fall on their face. And a lot of times it's just lessons that they really need to learn. But it's when you see somebody else walk through that darkness and come out, and now not only did you come out of it, but you're actually trying to have people awaken to a, you know, higher timelines and really feel into themselves. So I think that's an amazing journey.
Yeah.
So thank you for
Thank
doing
you.
that, man. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. It's, you know, my life has been challenging since the moment of conception, and I'm finally in this resting period. You know, you go through this period where you're finally in your resting period when you feel like, man, this is my last incarnation here. And that's definitely how I feel. I feel like this is my last incarnation here. You know, I love Earth. I have a different perspective of Earth. I don't view Earth as this place of punishment or this place where it's like purgatory or a prison planet. I see beauty in everything. I've learned to find the neutrality in everything, politics, you know, everything. I've literally strived to find neutrality in everything, and that's been my happy space where I can see the willingness, the acceptance, and the neutrality, which is a four-dimensional consciousness type of mentality that you strive for. And then you go into the fifth dimension, oneness, and you know, divine consciousness, and having all these downloads pour in through the divine, which is typically you come into this five-dimensional space. And that's where I go a lot of my time, but I don't like to stay up there too often because then I start to disassociate from reality. I start to disassociate from the 3D world. And this is where I want to pull information from. I want to pull this infinite pool of wisdom from these higher dimensional planes and bring them back down to earth to share with the collective.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the purpose. I think as we start having an expanded view of, you know, what's possible and exactly what we can do, because, you know, we start pulling ourselves out of the box that we found ourselves living in, and we realize that we have access to so much more information and so much more in energy. But that I think that's what part of the community got wrong, is they thought that we were going to ascend out of earth and ascend out of this and leave and go somewhere. And I think you're missing the purpose when you think that way. We're supposed to bring
Exactly.
that in, and we're supposed to ground it into here, because we're moving into an ascended version of this place. We came here and incarnated here for a reason as humans. We're not supposed to leave the emotions that we have as humans. They're all important because they all have something to teach us. There's a spectrum of light frequencies and emotions that go within those for a reason. Sometimes you're going to feel angry, and sometimes frustrated, and sometimes love, and it's all part of the human experience, and we're not supposed to bypass any of it. We're supposed to feel it and move through it and understand while we're in that space at that time. That's the whole purpose
Yeah.
of it, I think. So I think that the wisdom and the knowledge comes, like you said, from being able to stand in something and zoom out a little bit and look at it and think that's interesting. So let me look at this from a neutral perspective and see what's going on here and what is it that I'm supposed to be picking up from this. What's the lesson here? What am I supposed to learn? So to not get yourself where you're leaning into everything so much and having an emotional, a reaction to stuff so much. But if you can zoom out a little bit and look, sometimes you can get a broader perspective of it and understand. And there's going to be things, that are upsetting, and that's okay because we're human and we're supposed to be feeling that. So I agree with what you say on it. And I'm the same way. It's like I can expand out and I can look into other things and I can understand things in a new way. But the point isn't for me to stay there. I incarnated here at this time right now. So, and it evolves, right? So there's times that you can look at it and think you have it figured out and understand it, but a new component comes a couple days later or after a conversation, and now you really like you thought you got it, but now you really get it in a newer way because it's like, oh, okay, all right, I see. There's more to it. It's nuanced.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I look at some of my videos I've created over, the last 4 years, and I'm like, man, I've completely shifted past that belief. I've shifted past, certain constructs that the New Age community is putting out there. I've always been a huge component that there's going to be a lot of false light when we do begin to transition into a new earth, kind of frequency. There's, very, very profound and very intricate truths in the Bible, which talks about how knowledge would be very, 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 it would be just surrounded and there'd be this plethora of knowledge, but wisdom would be lacked during the times where humanity was going into this transitionary period of revelations and apocalyptic moments, which has always been a metaphor for what humanity is going to go through. It's not the end of the world. It's just the end of an old world. It's the end of an old construct, an old way of systematic living. It's an old way of looking to false idols and looking to politicians, looking to saviors that exist outside of yourself. And these are the paradigms and the the constructs that were really created to diminish humanity and keep us from our sovereignty. So people are starting to find new outlets. Like, I don't want to do a 9 to 5 my whole life. I want to be abundant and I want to be enriched in all ways, not just just not spiritually, just not physically, but in all ways. Because once you start elevating consciously, your whole life, your whole world around you gets better. It's naturally going to get better when you start to become a better version of yourself. You don't even have to really search. You don't have to really progressively work on these things that almost feel like you're forcing the issue. It just naturally happens. It organically begins to happen. And when the opportunity arises, it's like you're not fearful of taking that chance to perhaps move out of state or move into a relationship or start speaking more about your spiritual journey because you feel that nudge that this is exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
I agree with you. And it's a good segue too to show my book. But when I wrote the book, a few years ago, and when I did, I was looking at it through this 3D perspective of, where I was at the time and how I was deciphering what I was seeing. It's the other one. So to show people, this is available on Amazon and it's in Kindle. This is my book that I wrote, and that's my website. So you can also meet with me if you want to, and we're on YouTube and Rumble. But I'm saying all that to say, show dads too. If I was to write that book today, it would be a different book because I have a different perspective now.
Yeah, and you know what? And so this was this book. I love numbers. So and I know the universe when it comes to musical notes, geometry, numbers, all that stuff. When you can see it all aligns. And so this was the frequency formula was good for me for meditation because once I put numbers into things, it really makes me focus in. And so there's certain numbers that Grebovoy put together. He was a mathematician, and he put together, and it started to put a finer point on what he was doing as far as when he manifestation and things. And it's in all different areas. In that book, there's I think 600 codes I put in there, but there's probably thousands. But we've had some great feedback from people who have actually done it. And if you do it the right way, what it does, it keeps you in because you're doing it several times a day. And so like I had sticky notes all over the place on mirrors, on the visor in my car. But so there's affirmation. So during the day when and when the day starts to get to you, because we do live in the 3D, right? And so when we're driving in rush hour and we want to choke somebody, right? Because they cut you off, well, we start to get mad and we're squeezing the steering wheel and but when your visor is down and you're reading an affirmation, or, you're just, it puts you back into kind of resonance at a higher, that the vibe. Yeah. It's like, it puts you in perspective, like, okay, the guy, okay, who cares? Right. But so it keeps you in that mind frame. And I think that's what's important, because I think we kind of yo-yo up and down, up and down, up and down. And then because we don't know what, we're mad, we're mad and we're happy, mad and happy, right? Well, it's like a bipolar relationship we have, right? And so what happens is then the universe will decide what your fate is going to be. And that's when life happens to you, where if you can stay in neutrality and then stay in a positive, I say coordinate, because you know how my mind works. I like numbers. So, but when you stay in a positive, in that positive coordinate, because you're neutral, you're not getting pissed off at every little thing, right? And you're not that bouncing ball, then you can co-create. And then life starts to happen for you, and because you're co-creating it. So, so that's what I think that the book really helped me do when I read it. So I wanted to put it out, and I had a great response.
Yeah, a lot of people.
But no, Anthony, like you were saying with your dog, she put a picture of Dobby in the book, because when she was going through hers and she would be meditating for hours, right? He was right there.
Yeah, for me, I was home by myself, so I would drop my daughter off at school. And my book is all about my journey, but I would drop my daughter off at school, and then I couldn't wait to get home to go meditate, because every time I'd meditate, things would start seeing, and I'm very vision heavy, so I'd start getting visions and all of these things would happen. But my little dog, Dobby, he would be right there with me. And he was kind of like my meditation buddy, because he wouldn't really leave my side until I left. So I felt like I went through all of that. And when I was crying for like the 4 months that, after I realized like nothing that I thought was the way that it was, and it was all very difficult, everybody was gone, everybody was at work or school or whatever. And I was alone, but I had Dobby, and I kind of feel like I went through my awakening with him. So it only felt right to put him in my book and honor that what he did with me and to help me the way that he did. So
For sure. I mean, dogs and cats both have pineal glands, and they're fully open. Trust me, they're magical creatures. Unconditional love to love the way they do. It's just something that we all can take a lesson from that, and remember that we're not here for forever. We're here for a short time, and our dogs love us like it's the first time they've ever seen us, and they do it every single day. And that's a lesson we all can take from our animals, for sure.
And his dog does that with me now, to where if I'm doing yoga or if I'm meditating, anything to where I'm accessible, especially if I'm on the floor, she's gonna come and try and imitate me. And honestly, I just find so much peace and just laughter with that, because I'm like, you're teaching me. I'm not even teaching you.
Well, that they just showed that study that was showing that our animals are evolving with us, that they're becoming more human-like. And I mean, it's true. Like I look at her eyes, and I don't really see a dog. Sometimes I see a person, or I see myself in her as well. So it's definitely a special time to be alive, for sure.
Yeah, I just saw a little thing, and I want to look at it. I got to do some more research, but they were showing the aura around a dog, right? And when the human was coming through the door, must have had a bad day at work or whatever, and you can see the countenance around him wasn't great, wasn't lit up. So the dog was there, and he had the wiggles. The dog's excited, so he's wiggling, right? He's all excited, and jumps up on the owner. And you can see the countenance from the dog, that aura from the dog, just engulfing. And all of a sudden, you see the smile come on the face of the owner, right? And it's amazing how not just an animal to human, but human to human, right? Cats are magical as well, but with dogs, it's like that unconditional love, no matter what. I was telling her, I said, I look at the dogs, it just makes me smile. They make me smile no matter what's going on. They make you smile. And they now proven through with a scientific experiment showing the, what do you call it? The auric field around you is there, and it does transfer to who is in your kind of vicinity there. Yeah. And so the dogs are actually doing that. Cats, they didn't do it with cats yet, but I'm sure they do it probably in a different way, but I'm sure that that's happening. And one thing I like to add, it's crazy that, the people who I used to work with, the guys, when I'd be like, look at that hummingbird, beautiful little, then they're looking at me like, who the fuck, like, who are you? What are you talking about, a hummingbird? Or like, I was like, you don't hear how beautiful that sounds? That's, and because I started to talk differently, and act differently, over the years I was working with them. And they were kind of like, because I have, between my accent and, the way I talk, they're looking at me like, dude, are you joking with us? Like, what's happening? Are you going through a nervous breakdown, midlife crisis? But yeah, but you start to notice a lot of these things. And I would say that you're right. You don't, and she preaches it too. You don't have to look outside yourself, because she stopped looking outside herself pretty quickly and said, she goes, I don't need to have this. I have it inside. But what I would say is having a mentor, just like Tom Brady is the best quarterback, he has a quarterback coach, right? It's good to have somebody to mentor you, so you don't have to step on every single landmine. Like, I didn't have to step on every landmine that she stepped on, right? Kept going through her process. So to have her, going like, no, it's this, and this, and you can do this, and this. And she, it's always great, I think, to have a mentor who is the real deal, not a schmuck or, like a charlatan or whatever,
He's from Brooklyn, you guys. So he just says it. Sorry. I don't know.
Yeah. But someone who's going through it, right? Someone who's like who is preaching what is actually happening and can guide you through.
Well, it's not preaching with it. It's just, it's just talking about, sometimes you need to remember that you're okay. Sometimes you just need to remember that this is part of the process. You're not doing anything wrong. You didn't make a mistake. It's sometimes it's ugly, sometimes it's not. And sometimes you just need a reminder that you've got it. You're okay. And you can do this, and it's all part of it. There's no wrong turn. And he does the same thing for me. And she does too. There's times that I'm just like, we'll have a couple of days of something that really went left. And I'm just like, I'm trying to just figure out, like, what I could have done or what I could have, and they will say to me, you didn't do anything. There's, it's nothing that you did. It just, sometimes these things happen and we just got to figure out how to move through it. And do I know that? Yes. But when you're in the middle of it and you feel, like, wow, okay, I don't even know what that just was. Mm-hmm. Sometimes just having that person there to remind you and let you know what, you're good. I think it helps. I think we all need that. We're all human and we're just, making mistakes, and it happens.
Yeah. One thing I learned long ago about, enduring a lot of death, especially with the immediate family and tragedy, is sometimes the only lesson you're meant to learn is acceptance, and just remembering that it's simply acceptance, and it'll stop you at that moment from ruminating as to the whys or why somebody switched up on you. Why did this person do this? You just accept it, and it becomes a simple concept that you apply to your spirituality that stops you, from down spiraling.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a lesson that we've been learning as well. But I think the key thing that I've taken from my own personal journey is, like we say, like, just trust yourself. It's good to have a guide, and that's one thing, like, I really appreciate about my mom and other people we have in the community, where they provide their own little nuggets of wisdom. But really, what I've been noticing more recently in the past few months is I don't have the same desire to, like, watch this video and see, like, this tarot card reader or listen to this quote unquote guru or all of that. It's just kind of like, I don't need to rely on this information. Maybe at first, yes, because you're kind of trying to figure out everything and take in as much information. And I know we talked about this briefly on the last show, Anthony, but it gets to a point where it's kind of like you can't take in any more information. You're like, okay, I kind of need to remove myself, integrate it, and then discern, like, what I truly believe to. I'm not trying to take on other people's beliefs. They've come to that conclusion themselves for their own journey, but this resonates with me. This doesn't resonate with me. So I think that's a key thing And I feel like we all kind of come to that point at different times,
Yeah.
you know, in the journey.
Definitely. Those are definitely phases. The tarot phase, twin flame phase, all of those were phases that I outgrew, and I outgrew them pretty quickly. And what happens is when you are about to outgrow those beliefs, is you will have very clear and apparent signs from the divine, from your higher self, that it's time to leave it behind. Like for example, when I first went through my awakening, I opened my phone and it was just filled with tarot readings that I never stumbled on. I wasn't into it, never had a reading in my life, and all of a sudden my YouTube feed is filled with tarot readings. I open it. One of them was literally like so precise and scary accurate, speaking about like my mom and the death of my mom. It was almost like my mom was speaking to me through that reading, and it becomes very addicting. It becomes very unhealthy, to the point where you're basically trying to break the addiction from tarot. And over time I started obsessing with tarot. I looked to tarot for everything, for all the answers, and then at some point the tarot readings just become completely crap. And it's like, no, this is terrible. This is such a inaccurate reading. This has nothing to do with me. And that's the point where the universe is telling you, you took what you could from it, now it's time to leave it behind. So with tarot, it's not tarot. You don't find tarot, tarot finds you. And it's a modality that's supposed to be temporary. Now, like if I'm a reader, I understand why they do it and why they offer the service as a modality to individuals. But Ram Dass, called it fool's gold. It's only going to have certain limitations to it. It's not going to be, anything that that's not an answer that's already within yourself. It's basically going to mirror an answer, and sometimes it's going to tell you something that you want to hear, that's coming from your ego self or some of these other spirit guides that tend to push you into the wrong direction, because you're opening yourself, your physical portal into good and bad, which means that you have both negative and positive spirit guides. And it's really about coming to your heart center and realizing that that I am the tarot deck. I am the manifestation of these cards coming into the physical reality. And that's when I walked away from it and never looked back.
And I think we're drawn to that because we're so connected to, as humans, wanting to always know the answer. But sometimes, the best lesson is to just trust. And that's why another good reason why it's good to have an authentic coach as well. Sorry for interrupting you.
Not at all. No, I'm happy that you said that, because it's a really good point. And I was just going to say, I know of several tarot readers and stuff, and friends that are talented readers. But I think they'll say the same thing, is that, you don't want to get to a point where you lean on anything. It's a modality like anything else. So, if you have something that you do, and you want to look for answers, you can do that. And you leave what doesn't resonate with you and take what does. But a lot of it depends on you as an individual and where you are in it. But if you find that you're using it as a crutch, or you're waiting to see what your astrology is telling you before you decide what kind of day you're going to have, it depends on your zodiac sign or whatever these things are. Now you're leaning too much on something. It's okay to check in and to see what something is, or if you feel like you're really struggling with something and you kind of want to look into it, you can do those things. Of course, for sure, you can do that. And there are some very accurate readers, that can help you with certain things. But at the end of the day, it's like Emma said, your discernment is the most important tool that you have. And you have to get to a point where you can trust what you get over and above what anybody else is going to get. And I told her that when she was doing that with me, she would say, Mom, can you just look and see, what you think about this or what you think about that? And I told her, I said, I can look, Emma, and I can see, but you're going to get the better answer for you. What you want and what you need is going to be more accurate. And what I'm getting isn't necessarily wrong, but it's looking at it through the lens that I have, and nobody's going to be able to tell you better for what works for you than you, right?
Yeah. So a couple of things is, that's why balance in all things is the most important, or staying in neutrality, whichever you want to have that balance line. no matter what it is, if too much of anything is no good. You take too many vitamins, you destroy your liver, right? But you take the right amount and it's great for you. So you want to make sure that you're always balanced. And if you lean on anything too much, it's going to that's going to be the challenge that you're going to have to work through at some point. So that's that's where it's true. But I think, like she said, all the modalities have a function. All of them have their sweet spot where they can really propel you to a certain level. But you have to be introspective, and you have to go. That's where, if you meditate and sitting silent for 30 minutes or 60 minutes, because I bet you 99% of the population cannot sit for 30 minutes alone with their thoughts in silence. And I would also venture to say that if you did sit for 30 to 60 minutes just alone and really get introspective and get some answers, I bet you that your life would start to change almost immediately because of the answers, and you would be able to hear that small voice, that your guidance. You'd be able to hear that over and over. And as you did it longer and longer, you would get more and more clarity on issues that are coming up in your life, what's happening, why you're having volatility in your life, why there's no stability, whatever's plaguing you at the time. And it's funny because I heard this. I was watching something, and it was years ago. Brian Tracy, and he was kind of an influencer, not like today, but back then, like a Tony Robbins type person. And he was talking about that, and he was saying that back then he was saying that, and today with the TikTok, right, with the 30-second videos and the microwave generation and all that, we give ourselves, I think, ADHD because we want everything right now. And I'm 55. I'm not in that generation, but I want shit really quick as well. All right, I want it like now. You know how I am. But for me to try and sit down and do that, I had to like kind of build up to it. So I think it's really important to do that. And did you guys have to build up to that, or did it come natural that you can just sit with your thoughts? Because my mind starts racing and it's not great. So I had to get myself practiced.
It took continuous work. I mean, you can say that it's been a lifelong process for me, especially with those of us who are considered like neurodivergent on the spectrum or ADD. The attention span is very short for myself, especially if it doesn't gravitate me on the onset. So for myself, I was always searching for escapes, and I was always searching for acceptance and validation due to the origin and the roots of my pain and my childhood trauma. And it was really about reconnecting to the innocence of my inner child that really allowed me to develop a more refined perspective of forgiveness and compassion, and for allowing the fragments of my soul that were kind of just lost and waiting to be brought to the present moment, to the current version of myself. And as I did that, that's what really caused me to go into introspection and really brought me into this meditative trance, which allowed me to make peace and make amends and find acceptance, find forgiveness for my parents, find forgiveness for myself. And it was a soul retrieval. A lot of people are unconscious that when you start going into these lower timelines or these lower dimensional constructs that were created from pain and suffering, you're essentially doing soul retrieval, shamanic soul retrieval at that point. And you're getting all these fragmented parts of yourself, bringing it into the current version of yourself. And it's like, how would my adult version, how would this current version of myself bring joy and happiness and bliss and acceptance to that inner child that went through a lot of rejection and a lot of abandonment, a lot of abuse. And that's what really causes me to go to introspection, is taking control of what I can control, releasing what I can't control, and finding this this acceptance within myself that I've made a lot of mistakes. I've been imperfect. I've given to desire. I've fallen into temptation and lust. But these were all essential to help me to reconnect to my purest self, my God self, my higher self. If I couldn't experience the duality, the polarity and contrast of experiencing these dualistic versions of myself, then I wouldn't be able to create the version that I have become today.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me, it took a long time as well, because I'm an overthinker. So if I'm sitting alone with my thoughts, and more so now I've had a lot of time to learn how to control where exactly I need my mind to go. But before, I would just go back to all of my trauma, things that I regretted in my life, or what if I did this different? So when I was alone with my thoughts, I was actually scared of my thoughts. So it took me a long time to actually sit there, yes, listen to those thoughts, but also accept what has happened. How do I move on from this? How do I heal from this? And then find the peace in that. Then, like now, I can sit here, I can meditate, I can just be alone with myself, and I can enjoy it. And I think that is very important that we all have that moment of solitude to make sure that we're okay with ourselves. Am I checking in with myself? Am I okay? What am I feeling emotionally, spiritually, physically? And just checking in with each of those different things.
Yeah, no, that's beautifully said, Deja. I've been kind of going through the same thing myself where it's kind of like this is part of the process. So you also got to
Mhm.
find the balance with, not feeding into these thought patterns that you have and feeding into the trauma, but it's going through that dark night of the soul. It's like, okay, I can't, you know, allow myself to feed into these negative thoughts. It's part of the process of like, you got to look at it even though it's ugly, at times as
Yeah.
well. And for me, I'm one of those people where it's like, if it makes me uncomfortable, I don't like to look at it. But that's the most opportunity for growth to do that. You need to be able to like recognize this happened for a reason, but if this didn't happen, I wouldn't be who I am for that. So you have to also be thankful for those hard times as well. And I feel like people need to take that into account. But I feel like on the flip side, I don't know if you guys have experienced this as well, but I notice like emotions are super heightened right now. And I know we talked about it with Sherry before too, where everything feels like it's kind of speeding up and everything's just so intense now. Where I notice my emotions seem to come from more like negative emotions. So like anger, frustration. And then I feel like, okay, if it's hard to look at or if it's too much for me, I lash out and then I'm like, okay, I just want to remove myself and then try to give myself time to process it. So I don't know if like you guys have experienced that or if anybody who's kind of struggling to move through these set emotions, like do you have anything like any words of wisdom that you would recommend for someone like me going through that to kind of help them? Like you want to give yourself compassion and know like it's part of the process. You have to experience it. You are human, but there's always like a better way to navigate that.
Yeah. So what I just believe in is just go through it, no matter how messy it is. If it's ugly, if just go through it. There's no right way. There's no wrong way. You just have to be there and sit with yourself. What am I supposed to learn from this? What am I getting out of this? But don't get too connected to the outcome. Just experience it.
Yeah, for me, I would tell you that anytime you feel like perhaps you're going into like this dissension of feeling your emotions that are very uncomfortable or feeling apathy or anger, regret, remorse, guilt, whatever it may be, these lower dimensional consciousness constructs. This is typically what you have to feel before you begin to level up. Before
Right.
you go through this, it's essentially a preparation period. So you may
Mhm.
feel like you're thinking these thoughts that aren't truly in alignment with you, but it's exactly what you're supposed to be doing before you start to level up and break, and you're on the verge of a breakthrough. So what happens, to our cellular body, our celestial body, is before we're going to reach this breakthrough or reach a new timeline, you start to feel everything that was keeping you and holding you back. And you
Mhm.
feel it on a very intimate level. But if you have the awareness to understand that this is not punishment, this is not to crucify me, this is not to hinder my growth and my evolution, it becomes more of a response where you're surrendering to the process. You're not fighting it, you're not resisting it, you're accepting it, and you're finding healthy ways to cope. In comparison to, it's like, if I were to feel these emotions in my past, perhaps I go to the bar and I drink away my problems. If I feel this betrayal within, perhaps I call that girl for a hookup call or whatever. So now that you don't have these formulated ways of escapism, now you have to sit with it, and now you're able to construct a way to healthily navigate through it. So for me, when I would feel these these waves pulling me back or trying to get me to deviate off my spiritual path, I write about it. I find healthy outlets. I
Mhm.
write exactly what I'm feeling in that moment. I channel what I'm feeling in that moment. I put it onto paper, and from there it's like all this energy is just released into something that's positive. So essentially you're learning transmutation. You're learning how to alchemize. You're learning how to turn your pain, your anger, your guilt into something positive. So it's about really finding outlets and what works for you. So for myself personally, it's always been writing. It's always been expressing myself through speaking or even creating a video to free my throat chakra, because when you actually start to speak,
Mhm.
it's really proving to the version that maybe have like imposter syndrome or doubting, like maybe
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to talk about this. Maybe I'm not supposed to, do this spiritual work or want to be branched out into the collective to where I become a practitioner or whatever it is you're striving to become. Those limited beliefs. So this is really about getting rid of those beliefs, those limited beliefs that you have created about yourself, and allowing you to conquer those barriers that are keeping you from stepping into your full purpose.
Yeah, yeah, that was nicely said. And so I just want to make one point so people realize as though everything is energy, everything is frequency. And when you're going to have a breakthrough, obviously the frequency, right? So if you're at this level, you're going to have a breakthrough and the frequency's up here. That's going to be the discomfort you're feeling. You're not in alignment with it yet, right? And so one of the words that she had brought to my attention was you have to have an allowance for that and allow for that discomfort to happen, because once you raise to that and you can align with that new frequency, that's when the breakthrough happens, because now you're aligned with it. So it shed a lot of light on her for me, because as you know, you want to run to the smoke and run through the fire because you come out the other side. But why do people have the fear to go through there? And it's because it's energy and you're not aligned with it. So once you become aligned with it, and that's where utopia starts. You feel great. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
But one thing I wanted to say that you said, Anthony, and I want you to this, if you can speak on this for a second. When you said you went through when forgiveness and you had to forgive. So I think when you talk to people who have trauma and have some damage, and you say, well, forgive your dad, forgive your mom, or forgive Joe Blow, whoever, right? They're like, I'm not forgetting. No, that's not, I'm not, they did the wrong thing. They were wrong. They were horrible. They were there. But really the forgiveness is for you. So it's not toxic in you, and it starts to work on your heart, right? So how, what's a way you would explain that to talk people through that and say it's not for them, it's for you to forgive, and how's that help you kind of clear your mind to go through on the path that you're on?
yeah, for sure. I mean, before you forgive anyone else, you have to forgive yourself first. And it's like, well, why do I need to forgive myself? I'm the victim here. I'm the one that needs forgiveness from the perpetrator or the people that victimized me. Well, it's really about proclaiming and reclaiming your power, because when you don't come from a place of forgiveness or compassion, then you're allowing that person who hurt you or betrayed you or victimized you to remain with the power. But if I forgive myself, which then allows me to forgive my mother, my father, I'm forgiving them because they tried their best. They had their own issues, they had their own demons, but they never were able to conquer them. So why do I want to carry the burdens of people that have hurt me, which then makes me exactly like them? And I'm really searching for a place of empathy and sympathizing for them, and looking at it from a perspective that they too went through a lot of childhood trauma. They too um, were suffering deep internal wounds. So when I look at it from a place where I can put myself and sympathize and put myself temporarily and look through their lens and look through their coping mechanism and their addictions that they battled through, the incarceration of my father, and all these very dark and desperate moments that they went through, then I just feel sorry for them. and and I learned to no longer carry the burdens or feel like there's something I could have done as a child. There's something I could have done that maybe convinced them. Like I always had these thoughts, well, if you love me and you love your children, then why can't you just stop the heroin use? Why can't you stop beating one another if you love your children so much? So you start carrying the burdens, but it's like, this isn't my burden to carry. This isn't my responsibility. So I'm releasing it, which then once I did that, it took away all this resentment that I had for my parents. I was in a very resentful state because I felt like a lot of my suffering was due to my parents' choices or their inadequacies. But in reality, I can be the victim all I want and carry a victim mentality, but I I then chose to become a victim of introspection, which if I can observe my family from a place of grace and a place of forgiveness, then I could begin to alter the course of that family dynamic and take it upon myself to now change the course and direction of where that bloodline is going. So it's not about just forgiving for yourself, but you're forgiving yourself for generations of trauma. You're forgiving your lineage for trauma because it was not just my mom, my dad that suffered. It was my grandparents. It was their grandparents, my great grandparents. This was epigenetics that was very progressive throughout generations of my family, of our family. Anybody that's on their healing journey, there's somebody in their family that also had similar issues, greater issues. So it's not just doing the work for myself. It's making everybody that's watching us from the heavens and watching everybody that allowed me to experience and perhaps I look at it from this perspective where my mom and my dad chose to be the villain in this lifetime to allow me to awaken, to allow me to awaken. So I now look at it from a place where it was a sacred offering. This wasn't a punishment, but this was a sacred offering for me to be the one to change the course of that family.
I so agree with you with that. I got a visualization one time actually of going through that where I was looking at like my immediate family, who I don't talk to my father or my sister, but I was looking at them and my mom was there and I went through a whole thing with them, but then all of a sudden behind them was another group and it was like their siblings and their parents, and then behind them was another group and it went on and on and on. Before I knew it, this field was like full of people and I knew that I was related to them, and it was kind of moving through that and watching the light go out from like my heart and what I was projecting out toward them in forgiveness, but I was watching it like move through behind and going through. It was really profound. And when I recognized that that's what I did, all of a sudden everybody was lighting up and people like in a movie, I was watching them kind of get very ethereal looking and going up and then going up, and they started just spattering of them all over the place. But eventually, like everybody was gone. Everybody had like moved up, and um, that's what I got from that as well. It was like by me looking at this and being willing to do the hard work in that it was generational. It was that whole lineage, that whole line of people, and it was both sides of my family. It wasn't just my dad and my sister, but it was like my dad's side of the family and my mom's side of the family, and it was people I'd never seen and known. So it's if you can get to that place where you can open your heart to the fact that everyone's just doing their best with the tools that they have at the time, and sometimes they're in survival mode too, and you're not an equation for them in whatever it is that they're going through. They're so caught up in what they're dealing with and their own traumas and their own stuff. They can't even see it like that. They're not really factoring you in to that degree and that level that you want them to, that you'd like them to, you need them to, you'd like to think, oh, you love me so much that you can see what this is doing to me and you can fix it for me. But sometimes people just aren't capable of doing that. They have what they have and the skill set that they have, and you can't, squeeze blood out of a turnip. It's just not going to happen. So you have to come to a place where you can find it within you and you can heal it from here. And when you do that, it's a gift that you're giving yourself, but it's a gift that you're giving them too.
Yeah, I think and a
Yeah.
good way to look at it, I always look at it and say they made the best decisions with the information they had, because they didn't have the right information, like Anthony was saying, because their parents didn't have. They did the best of the limited information they had. right? And on and on. And so it's not that they were trying to do anything to stump your growth or hurt you. It's just that they were really making as horrible as the decisions may seem, it's they were trying to probably make the best decisions with the information they had, or what, what their path was. So, but so that was what that actually just helped me to kind of put it in perspective and give somebody a little grace, going, all right, they're trying their best, they just didn't have the information. But what did Deja, did you have any in like having to forgive, and how'd you go through that process if you had to?
Absolutely. And adding on to what you said there, that's the reason why we're cycle breakers, is because, yes, they didn't have the tools in their box to, whether it was to forgive or to learn how to transmute or parent your children softly, whatever the case may be. But we're going to be the ones to go out and learn how to do these things, look deep within ourselves to heal ourselves so that our lineage can be healed as well. But that's what I wanted to add on to that.
Yeah. We have very early marrying childhoods, from the victimizing, sexually addictive parents to drugs, the abuse that we suffered. We have a lot of marrying when it comes to that. And, like I always, right before my mom passed away, I remember having conversations with her and asking if she was ready. And, she told me, and my mom was very sociopathic, narcissistic as well. But it's almost like when I had that last conversation with her, I seen life return into her body right before it was going to leave again. And I was able to make peace. I made peace with my brother, my dad, my mom. I got to have all these conversations with them before they passed over. And I knew from a very early age that it was going to be me who broke the generational curses of that family. And that's something that we all have in common. I'm sure from a very early age, you guys probably knew that you were destined for something greater. And I accepted my mom, my dad, everybody in my immediate family essentially could only love me as much as they love themselves. So if they never truly loved themselves or understood what self-love was, then I'm creating this false expectation of how I expect to be loved by them. And just releasing that expectation. And that's something that you truly learn throughout the spiritual journey, is to release your expectation with individuals, with the practitioners, with the people that you're going to meet who are spiritually inclined. When you release that expectation, you put yourself in a place where you're not becoming too attached to the outcome, or you're not becoming attached to the individual, so you can always pull back or use your discernment, intuition to know, like, if I'm not attaching to this person on a very just this negative way of attaching emotionally, and I'm putting all my eggs and I'm banking on this person being who they claim to be, then you're essentially not going to allow yourself to have these very heartfelt moments of despair where somebody disappoints you, because you're going to be disappointed a lot in the spiritual community, a lot. And you start to just accept them for who they are. It's like, no, like, yeah, I'm glad you showed me who you are now, rather than 2, 3, 4 years down the road. So people have this way of revealing themselves a lot sooner rather than later when you're on the journey, which you have to be thankful for. You have to be grateful for, because you're catching it and you're nipping it right at the butt before it gets to these long drawn out trauma bonds that we've all grown accustomed to. We dealt with it for far too long, and we now can see it on the onset. We could see the shifts, we could see the switch up, or the energetic incompatibility. You feel it, you see it before it occurs. And it's so important that you also remember that I'm feeling it, so therefore I can't judge this person on the onset, but I'm going to take a mental note that I'm feeling a certain way within. That way, when that time arises, I have no issues pulling away from this person.
Wow, that was like I literally just went through that in the past few months, and I'm like, wow, that was on point with that. But I've also noticed where if it comes to that point where you're like, okay, this isn't resonating with me anymore, and you kind of break away from a person, you learn the necessary lesson and all of that. But have you had it where people from your past end up spontaneously showing up again? Because I almost feel like
Oh yeah,
it's like a test in a way. It's like, did you
definitely.
do the work? Did you move on?
That's the law of correspondence. Exactly. We all go through this period where it's going to feel like a test when really it's an opportunity. Sometimes people deserve a second chance to come back into your life. I'm going to tell you now, about 95% of those people don't deserve a second chance to come back into your life. It's just a karmic loop that's coming into your life one last time to see, did you learn the lesson? Did
Mhm.
you complete and fulfill the lesson of what this person was bringing into your life? If you get past it, then it turns into something that transitions you into a different phase, a different cycle of your life. So typically, like, the numbers will shift. Like, when you close out a cycle, you're going to see a lot of nines. This is kind of, your higher self telling you, you've completed, you've fulfilled, you've learned the karmic lesson, and now it turns into ones because you're starting a new cycle. But you see them all, but those little subtle languages that the universe always has to, to remind us that we're on the right path, are always there. But you have a lot of people that come back around, and predominantly most of them are trying to keep you into old pattern, old way of living. But you can have like that last conversation if you must. For me, I found that not having those conversations was best for me when they tried returning, because these were people who I already knew I didn't want to associate myself with. And therefore, forgiveness does not mean the person needs to physically be in your life. I can forgive energetically. Forgiveness is something I can do on an individual level without the person actually knowing that I actually already forgave them.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, no, I agree with you with that, because sometimes it seems like I can only speak for myself, but I struggle with, like, if this person decides to pop back up, it's like I want to practice like compassion and forgiveness. So if they feel like they need to say something for their closure, whatever it is, it's like you want to give them the opportunity, but then on the flip side, I'm kind of like, well, we said what needed to be said, or it just kind of naturally just we both went this way. So it's kind of trying to find that balance, like what's the right move, what's the wrong move, because you don't want to keep staying stuck in that pattern at the same time. So I think that's definitely something you just got to practice your discernment and everything with that as well, just to see what feels right to you at the time.
Yeah, for sure. And knowing your self-worth and knowing what you bring to the offer, no longer accepting that you're a commodity, but you're an asset into people's life. So you become very forgiving, but you have a short leash with people. If they show you who they are, you accept that's who they are. You're not going to continue to wait for them to show you who they are. You already showed me once. I trust myself to continue to move forward, and the universe is going to continue to bring in people who are truly in alignment with me, who aren't going to have to come back as second offenders and try to ask for my forgiveness. I'm not going to put myself in a position where I continuously, um, I'm having this group of individuals who are seeking forgiveness from me, because the people who are your people are not going to need forgiveness. They're going to treat you exactly how you deserve to be treated. They're going to meet you where you are, and they're going to appreciate what you bring to the table.
That's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy. When me and her first met, compared to my relationships prior, I mean, I didn't have anything crazy traumatic, but when me and her met, it was literally our first date. We were 5 hours
Yeah.
at a just talking at a restaurant. It was the longest dinner date ever. And we would just talk, and we were like, holy cow, we couldn't believe what time it was. We just, everything was flowing to a point where we were like, with everything, with music that we liked, with foods that we liked, with just everything. And it was just everything just lined up beautifully. And so, and I think it's once you do get to a point where you could be 100% of yourself, and your mate can be 100% of him or herself, and with that, it's good to you have to, like you said, you have to love yourself first, right, and be whole with yourself. You can't expect anyone else to make you whole. That being said, I tell everybody that she makes me want to be a better person, a better man every day. I sometimes I don't, I don't achieve it. Sometimes, I'll stumble and fall like everybody else. But, but when I see her, or when I'm about to do something that maybe, whatever, she has her voice in my head that is like, you want to stay in integrity. You want to, don't have that Brooklyn mindset come in. Right. And, maybe cut corners, do it the right way the first time, and the way she is. And I want to be that person so she can be proud of. It's not that I'm a codependency or anything, but it's when you have somebody who makes you want to be better, and they want to be better, that's how I think it really starts to grow. So it looks like you two guys have it, because you guys have it's a nice energy. You can just tell they have together. So God bless you. But go ahead, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah. Thank you guys. I mean, we have very few disagreements. Like we hardly fight. It's never something that lingers. It's healthy, you know, and that's exactly what I want to do for her. Like I want to be able to take her to places around the world where we see, you know, these blue lagoons, and we go to ley lines, and we go to places that are very spiritual. Like I want to become better so I can bring that into her life. I also want her to feel safe. I want her to feel secure. I want her to feel like, you know, she's attractive and she's accepted, and remind her that, you know, that each day I'm with her, each year I'm with her, it still feels fresh. It still feels new. It's not feeling like it's, you know, 10 years when it's 3 or 4 years. It's feeling fresh and new all the time, because we're continuously evolving together. We're continuously becoming new versions of ourselves. So therefore, each time that she goes through a period where she's evolving, growing, then it uplifts me, and I'm able to show her like gratitude that I'm seeing the changes in her, and I'm seeing her react a different way. I'm seeing her treat her stepmom differently. I'm seeing her working on developing relationships better, and that overall makes me feel like I'm contributing and I'm doing something right by giving her a safe place to be herself, giving her a safe place to maybe disassociate from the world and go into a cocoon if she needs to, and do whatever it is she needs to do to further integrate her own healing on her own. So sometimes maybe I have to, you know, when she was going through this period of her another dark night, ironically, like my work did this 7 to 7 shift where I was never home. So it's like the universe gave her time to sit in isolation to where she can work and go deep into her problems and delve into her issues that she was having at that time. And I'm also there for support, but I'm also not becoming very opinionated, or I'm not telling her like, you need to do this, this is what you need to do. I'm here if she asks me for guidance and you know, whatever assistance if she needs, but I'm not forcing it on her, because early with awakenings, the first thing people want to do is they want to force people and try to awaken people, and it becomes counterproductive, when in reality the best thing that you can do is lead by example and lead through the embodiment of doing exactly what it is to become aligned and spiritual. And then the rest will follow, and the rest will start gravitating towards you. That's what happens even when you start creating your you know, your platform and you start to speak out. You're going to notice that a lot of people start gravitating towards you because they truly see that you've done the work. You know, people who are truly aligned and doing the work recognize when a soul is truly aligned and awakened. They can also spot the people walking around masquerading as being awakened when truly they're not. So it's a gift, it's a sacredness. And awakening is truly a sacredness. And that's why there's this indifference between the people who are unconscious and the people who are awake, because people who are unconscious haven't done the work. So they aren't able, and they're not initiated into the spiritual world, because it is a sacredness, and they need to first do that work before they can enter that realm of spirituality and become, you know, discovering that the kingdom is within. So they have to first become that heaven that they want to create, and then the gates of heaven will also open up for them.
No, just wanted to point out too, I feel like your guys' relationship and like my parents are like the perfect example of like what a true divine union is, and it's beautiful to see. And it gives us hope for the rest of us. Someone's out there. But yeah, I think just the biggest takeaway from that is, you know, you have to feel whole within yourself. You don't need somebody else to provide that for you. And then once you're fully whole, then you can find another partner where you can build together with that. And I think that's a key thing. And you can see that the narrative with that is starting to change. It's not like we're two halves of one whole, we're whole together and we make a bigger whole together. So I think it's
for sure.
Yeah,
Kind of picked up that person she was talking about coming back around was probably an ex-boyfriend or something.
Yeah,
that's how it works.
Yeah, I'm like, why all of a sudden no thank you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure. I mean, yeah, go ahead. I'll go
No, I
after
was
you.
just gonna say that the thing that I recognize that to me, I don't know what you guys think of it, but it was surprising to me because it is the one thing that I think that I always carried with me. But so many people, when they're going through all of these things, they don't have that connection to themselves where they have self-love. And it's a missing component, and you can try to, put love on other people, and you could try to focus in on these things as you're going through your awakening, but you have to come back to that core where you're actually finding compassion and love for you. And until you can really do that on a foundational basis, because that's where all the healing and everything comes from, when you start looking at yourself and seeing all your flaws and recognizing, your humanness and where you feel like you've misstepped, but you can find compassion and love for yourself and feel like it's okay, that it's that process and all the things that you could go through. That's where you grow and you expand, and you can kind of move out of that shadow part of yourself, and you're accepting of it. It's not something that you feel like you have to get away from, or you have to pretend like it never happened anymore. It's an acceptance and an allowance for the fact that these are all parts of you, and you integrate that inside of you, and you feel like you can, move through things. But it starts with self-love and compassion. And I think that's the thing that surprised me the most, is that as I started meeting people in this community and started talking to people and all of that, was the recognition that it's really not common to be able to have that within yourself. Do you guys find that?
Yeah, I mean, I work with thousands. I've, over the course of 4 years, I've worked with thousands of people, and a lot of people have the knowledge, but they lack the embodiment. It's very very rare that you find somebody who truly celebrates your growth and others' growth. More people are in competition with one another. More people are trying to be the epitome of I'm more consciously elevated than you. I'm more superior. I'm in the seventh dimension. You're just a fifth dimension being. I'm already at this level. So it comes with a lot of ego. There's a ton of spiritual ego in the community, which is why I personally have pulled away from the spiritual community quite a bit. I
Mhm.
pulled away from a lot of people because I just don't want to be part of the community and the direction of where it's going. And it has to be done this way, just like in, the Christian churches or some of the more, traditional theologies. There's a uprooting that's occurring. So the same thing is occurring in the spiritual community, where there's also uprooting, and false prophets are also being revealed, and people that aren't truly doing the work. It's not just affecting the pinnacle of traditional Christians and things like that, but it's also starting to burrow over into the spiritual community, where a lot of these people who have 300,000 followers on the social media are starting to they're starting to have themselves look really silly to people who are awakened. And it's very obvious, and people are starting to realize that this person has led me into this, almost like this cult, and this belief of while the Galactic Federation is going to come and save everybody, we just got to meet that frequency. There's a reason why they haven't came down. It's because we haven't met that frequency. Well, I've been hearing that since for thousands of years now. It's like, do I believe that there's other beings out there? Of course I do. Do I believe they're coming to save us? No, because then that makes me no different than the Christian who believes that the rapture is going to occur and save the people who have accepted Christ as their savior. It's the same thing that you're seeing with the New Age spirituality. It's just a different character, but the Galactic Federation is like the epitome of the rapture in Christian. Or there's the Great Solar Flash that's supposed to come and split the dimensions, where the third dimension, all people cease to exist, and they can't handle the solar flares because they're vaccinated, and now their DNA is contaminated, so they're just going to all die. So it's like this very morbid way of creating these videos that are getting millions of views and going viral. And I'm like, man, how can people not see this? Or I come across people because I'm not melanin. We're not melanin. It's like, oh well, only people with melanin skin are going to be able to handle the solar flares. I'm like, that's where is this information coming from. We were all the same color at once. Pale skin was a genetic mutation as people started to migrate further toward the North Pole or South Pole, and the pigment of the skin changed. So we all come from the same source. We all came from the same creator. We were all the same color at one point. Perhaps we were blue at one point, but we were all the same color. And people have just started to just regurgitate and spew out bullshit that's leading many people astray.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, I've seen where people say they're so enlightened and everything, and then there's so much ego. It's like you can smell it from a mile away. So it's just kind of like, all right, I'm going to put you over there. But that's where your discernment comes in, where it's kind of like, okay, well, this isn't resonating with me. People can feel what they want to feel. They've made up their beliefs based off of what they've experienced. Okay. But it's just kind of like pulling yourself away from that as well. And
We did that.
yeah, we did that very, very recently too. And it's kind of like wishing them well, but it's just like, this isn't resonating with me anymore. But I was kind of
For
shocked
sure.
because again, I'm newer into this, where it's like you wouldn't think that these spiritual people, these enlightened people would have it, but it's everywhere. But then I look at it like, okay, but what's the lesson in this? What is this reflecting back to me? Because it's also maybe something that I need to work on as well, because they say people are mirrors of you as well. So I always try to look at it from that lens. It's like it's a learning opportunity or a growth opportunity with that.
For sure. I mean, your block list is going to grow substantially when you start, growing your platform. I probably have over 200 people on my Instagram that I've blocked. You're also going to have people come in to challenge who you are. People that want you to doubt yourself. They want you to feel like maybe I shouldn't speak. Maybe I'm not qualified to talk about the spiritual awakening. Maybe I'm not qualified to be a practitioner. Maybe I need to go to these webinars and get some type of certificate that shows I'm qualified now. So you're going to get a lot of people that challenge you, and it really has to start with you knowing that this is your divine purpose. Your calling is reaching out to you, and it's just about grabbing that opportunity. Of course, you have to do the work before you get to that point of branching out into the collective, because there's a lot of people who go out into the collective and they're still in narcissistic relationships. They're still battling addictions with drug and alcohol, and they haven't really aligned themselves to the point where they have energy transfer with people. So they're basically coming into the presence of somebody that's really in genuine need of guidance and mentoring. And they have all these issues that they're trying to shade and shelter from people, and they're latching their energy, becoming quantum entangled with other individuals. And now you have a trauma bond that's in creation. And now these people are just have that push pull effect, and it's overall an unhealthy dynamic. So I made sure I was honestly clear of my karmic debt. No longer infidelity. I wasn't having these fleeting pleasures with women. I wasn't masturbating. I wasn't watching pornography. I was deeply rooted with my heart center, sensitive with myself, understood my emotions, being capable of crying, being able to express and communicate how I feel, no longer feeling like I need to suppress my emotions. And when I got to this point of feeling whole, that's when the universe was like, okay, it's time to put you out there. And now we want you to start sharing what you've gained.
Yeah.
Well, that was beautifully said. And I really appreciate you guys again for coming on. I feel like this was a great discussion. I know I took a lot, and I'm going to still be probably processing this. I'm sure it's the same for you guys, but I feel like we could talk for hours at this point. But we'll definitely have to have you guys back on if you want, whenever you have the time.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure.
So
I'm back to normal schedule.
it was good to meet you, Anthony, because when the first show, I came home and I told her, I said, he seems like he has a massive amount of information in that head of his that we have to have some conversations. And it was really great to meet you, Daija, with being new and what you're experiencing, and the message you're giving is very, very important. And so just wanted to thank you both. And yes.
Yeah, I wanted to say the same thing. I appreciate you, Daija, and the stuff that you're putting out, and keep doing it. I think that it's so important for women to be able to kind of come together and recognize that, while we're going through this, and we're doing this, that there is a sisterhood there of people that care, and it's not about a competition, and nobody needs to be in front and nobody needs to be winning. Let's just like be there for each other, show compassion, and be open. So the fact that you started that platform to do that, I think that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I love that you guys came on together so that we could see what a healthy dynamic in a relationship looks like when you're going through this. It's not always easy, but it can be done. And you guys are a great example of it. And, the same thing, Anthony, I was going to call you Bobby. I don't know if that's okay, but
Oh,
it's,
no, that's fine.
okay. I feel like, you putting out those messages when you do, it's so synchronistic. It's like we can literally just be having a conversation, and then one of us will go on and like show the other one, like, look what he just said. Look what he was just talking about. We were literally just talking about this the same day, that you
Yeah,
bring something up. So I appreciate you guys. And
of course.
And it's also important for men, young men, to see a man speaking about this, a strong man, not a crazy looking, like kind of, like a man that they can look to and go, this is what it is, because it's important for women. But I think, it's important for young men to see that they can, have some feelings about things and not have to suppress. So that, I think that's very important, because I talk to a lot of young men as well. So I
Yeah.
think it's important,
Yeah.
Anthony. So
Yeah, I mean, there's difference between, often mistake weakness for meekness, and
yeah.
I've come across so many people that chastise, criticize, and want to defame my character. I expected it though. Like, you just have to know that your growth is going to offend many people, and I accept being the villain in people's narrative. There's a hero and there's a villain in every story, and I accept being the villain in a lot of people's stories. And once you accept that, it's like nothing bothers you. You get to this point where you don't care what people think about you. You don't care about the perceptions. You have to be very comfortable with, with the triggering effect that you're going to have. And a lot of people aren't going to take it very kindly, because you're triggering a demon, a darkness within themselves. And it doesn't feel good to have somebody just authentically be themselves and bring out these demons inside of the other person. A lot of people automatically, they want to attack because of it, and it happens all the time. So yeah, you're going to come across some very interesting encounters, but at the same time, you're already prepared for it. Like, you're already ready to go out into this place, in this very unfamiliar world, where you're going to feel other people's energy. You're going to be able to know their intentions, and you're not always going to have it right. But even when you don't, it still turns into something beautiful, because you still are able to pull away and not become jaded, and not allow this person to feel like, well, this person was someone who I thought was enlightened. Now they proved to me they weren't. Now I don't trust nobody. It's like, no, this person showed me who they were. I'm just going to keep moving forward and put myself back out there. I've already suffered the worst of the worst when it comes to heartbreaks. What this person has done to me doesn't compare to the heartbreak I've suffered in my past. I am capable of putting myself together time and time again. The more that you do it, it's almost like you become like, like this clay that just is able to mold itself back together and just continue to bend and curve with water. And you're just accepting that I'm going to have all these experiences that aren't always pleasant, but it's not a reflection of my character. It's more of a testament of my character that I'm having all these different encounters, because you don't always attract what you are. Sometimes you attract people who are in need of what you are.
Yeah. And to also just leave room for the fact that everyone's growing and evolving, and, leave space for the fact that, that's going to happen for these people too. So if they're not there yet, they're understanding concepts, and they're, you know, um, looking at this stuff, that you could just, hope and hold space for the fact that they're going to get to a place where, they do their shadow work, and they do look within, and they do decide that they're ready to step more into their own path of how they can evolve and grow. And I hope that for everyone. I'd love to see that we all can kind of get to that place. So just, holding that space, and having love in your heart for everyone, and and knowing that, you know, everyone's got their journey and it's going to be different for all of us. Daija, did you want to say anything before we end today?
Yeah, we're just super grateful. This was awesome. We got to share a lot of wisdom, receive a lot of wisdom, something to point and really great information that you guys have. So I just want to say thank you guys for having us on here.
Multiple
you're
times.
welcome. It was a real pleasure to meet both of you.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming.
Likewise. You're
Thank you,
welcome, and
everyone,
thank
for
you guys
watching.
as well.
Oh, thank you, Anthony. I'm sorry I keep stepping on you. I think we might have a little bit of a
All right.
delay or something, but I apologize. But thank you, everyone, all the viewers, and hopefully we can have you guys back in the future and we can catch up and see what you guys are up to.
For sure.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye-bye,
everybody.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Okay,
you.
guys. God bless.
Bye, guys.
Bye.